you will help make somebody happy, and you can't put a price on that. You know that you have used your abilities, your talent, and you have made someone else's life better. That's a heck of a good feeling.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Rick Harrahill, a professional electrician. You can find the previous podcast and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Rick, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. We were introduced because you wrote in response to some advice that we gave to one of our listeners, and I'm grateful for that, and you agreed to be on the show. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
There are many ways to be an electrician. I'm sure you'd agree. You could probably work in facilities or manufacturing or work in hospitals or work in power plants. But at least part of your work must be focused on residential work because that's what you wrote in about. Can you tell me about your work as an electrician, please?
It's the company I'm working for now. We do quite a bit of different variety. During the winter time, especially with the elements the way they are, we try to focus on remodeling, not too much brand new construction for residential, but no, quite a bit of variety. Today was more commercial than anything, but tomorrow may be working in an old house. It's just whatever needs to be done. Stuff like that.
Do you know like a day ahead of time or more about what you're going to be doing in a given day?
I do. Like today I had different plans, but there was a couple of emergencies that, or I guess our version of an emergency that needed to be addressed, and we got those straightened out, but it was after lunch before we got that done. And no, it's kind of, Patrick, you kind of play it by ear, what has priority, and most of the people at the different locations in this company will tell you if this can wait, or hey, I need this right now. So you do your best for them to do that. So there is quite a bit of variety with it. So
do you have like a dispatcher or someone in the company that is assigning respective electricians to different jobs?
No, it's small enough, myself and at least one apprentice, sometimes two, that work with me, that we get these done. If it's a large part or big project, we have brought in outside electricians to do part of it, but the majority of what I do can be handled by 2 or 3 people. So they're not big projects.
Are there how many employees are in the company doing electrical work on a typical day?
On a typical day, usually just the 2 of us.
Uh-huh. Do you like the old work, the commercial work, the new work more than than others?
I mean, old work is more of a challenge. It makes you pull your hair out a lot more, but it also makes you, it's, you've seen this, you've done this yourself, that it is a challenge and you work with what you have the best you can. New work it's
clean.
It is. It's very clean. In this neck of the woods, a lot more of the electricians want to do new work. It's like anything, carpenters, it's all the same. You know what you're getting into. There are no hidden problems that you're going to uncover. But do I like it? I like it quite a bit. It's a nice challenge, nice variety. And you can talk to the management in this company and say, look, this is not going the way we want. Do we want to approach from a different angle? Or they can approach me and say, we're on a time crunch. Most of the residential places we work on, the company is going to hold on to those and rent them out. And they have a real need for quality housing for people. That really kind of drives our labor force. How many people can you come work for you is based on, can I find a place for my family? Stuff like that. So quality, affordable housing.
And I bet that you find all kinds of stuff wiring those and working on those buildings. Am I right about that? Old work is you always find weird surprises.
You do. Some of it is scary. Sure, it is. And some of it you can see from the original electricians. I was very fortunate for about 5, 6 years in my previous job to work with an electrician who started in the 1950s. His dad started in the 1920s. Just to be able to talk to him and to the wealth of experience he had, I would come on the old job. I'd come back to the shop just complaining and, oh, geez, criminy, what kind of idiots thought, they put one light bulb and one plug in a room. What kind of morons were these guys? And he would tell me in the 1950s, they were ecstatic just to have a single plug in the kitchen or to have electric light. And you don't realize how bad it was.
You do when
He
you have a
said that
power
as
outage. I
he
will
said,
tell you. Yeah, you start to appreciate how important power is to your life and safety. It's not just about
yes,
convenience. Like your food, your well water, your sanitation, your heat. It is hugely
oh
important.
yeah, more so every day, more and more. He like even the simple things that you and I take for granted, wire, solderless wire nuts. They didn't have them. They soldered everything. And he said you could tell electricians walking down the street because they had pocket butane lighters in their shirt pocket. And it would always spill and it would make a little stain. So you knew the electricians because they would have a stained pocket. It's just crazy stuff like that. But no, no, I learned a lot. I really, really appreciated my time with uh, that old electrician. He's still around, but he has since retired. So
So you mentioned your trusted coworkers who helped bring you up, but how else did you learn the trade?
I started off with the Navy as an electrician. Um, I was just a farm kid, wanted to do something different. Um, Leave Nebraska, and the Navy was a pretty easy way to do that. So went to Chicago to electrician school. Um, they tried. I didn't learn anything. I was just a rock, Patrick. I mean, I'm not. When I got out of that class, I thought, man, I think I passed. They say I passed, but I'm just ignorant. I don't know anything. And then, fortunately, other schools I went to, I was able to get my act together and uh, go on to further assignments and finally try to learn something. So, but no, the Navy started me off and with that.
Did they? I mean, I'm sure they helped get you started, but did they adequately prepare you to be an electrician? Do you think? Could you have done it without further training later on?
Uh, they probably could have. It's a different realm. The stuff that I do now is more installation, whereas on the submarine it was all maintenance, repair, keep the equipment operating. Um, it's still electricity, still fixing things that are wrong, but it's just a different mindset. That's probably the toughest part for me now is to for new installation, for wiring a house, stuff like this, to just stop and think, okay, what's the handiest way to put this switch? Where's, so it's not going to be in the way so that 10 years from now, somebody's going to have to work on this. How do you do it? So the installation part of it is different for me, but I was
Yeah,
more
if you're on a
geared
submarine, the
towards
switch is where it is, right? There's
pretty much you're going to fix it and you're going to just, that's how it's built. So, no. But I
So back
enjoyed
to
the time part of it.
how long did you do that?
I was an electrician for 20 years on submarines and then had a chance to come back to Nebraska. And it's a big change. We were out west near Seattle and returned to small town Nebraska. Kind of, our children were still in high school at the time. And it was some learning curves to it. I think they enjoy it now, but at the time, it's not like the big city. So,
Oh, I'm sure.
But
You mentioned to me that you had spent some time in coastal Connecticut,
I
and
did.
I'm assuming that was because of your time in the submarine service. Am I right?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
No, Connecticut was. But once you just have to get used to the pace, and that was tough for us back in '89. We had little children, and I was a small town kid. It's but once you get used to Connecticut, there's a lot of good with it that we enjoyed, and we have very good memories. We went back in 2018, and a lot of things have changed, but it's still Connecticut's gorgeous. A lot of
It is.
history, but
I love this marine museum and what is that in Groton on the Navy base? That is super cool. If any of you listening ever get a chance to do that, it's free and so worth your time. It is really neat. So we should get back to this podcast
yeah,
question. This listener that wrote in was suggesting they should install 20 amp circuits so you weren't limited with power later when you wanted to use extra stuff. And I think we said generally to stick with code requirements. You don't need to do that. It's overkill. And
sure.
you said otherwise, and we read your letter on a podcast. I don't know if it's aired yet, but you made good points. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Why you think it's important to, be ready for upgrades?
Yes, thank you. The comment was made that it is overkill to do any. There's code book, as you know, requires certain places to be 20 amp circuits, kitchen, bathroom specifically, uh, and general purpose outlets such as the living room, stuff like that. The comment was made that there's really no reason to spend the money on it. I just, from all the upgrades I have done from the old houses, we always find more stuff to plug in. And they are more efficient, they are, but we buy more things now. We plug more things in. Some things don't take much electricity, but geez, crimey, there's so many more new stuff coming out. Uh, and then if you want to add on, a 20 amp circuit may make that so much easier in the future. But I can understand, in my job, I am not bidding contracts. I am not trying to outbid you, outbid the next person. And I don't fault my fellow electricians who do, they have to make a bid. That's how they stay in business. So they may do 14 or 15 amp circuits, and that's adequate for today. But Patrick, what about tomorrow, 10 years from now? I don't know what's coming next. I just know that more and more electric vehicles, more gadgets to plug
Well,
in.
I can tell you your email got me thinking a lot, and I thought about people's home life has changed so much. Now maybe you have an elderly parent who wants an electric blanket so they're not freezing to death, and maybe you do want a 20 amp circuit to keep grandma from freezing. So I was like, and your point also was that it's relatively little money we're talking about. You're talking about, maybe tens of dollars.
Sure.
It's not a lot of money. So I thought it was a good thought-provoking response you had, which I appreciate very much.
When you talk about elderly people, it's not only the heating blankets or also the lift chairs, the vibrating chair, the massage, uh, feet massagers, everything that you want to plug in. It's more convenient. And we do spend more time at home for different, not only just this last year, but um,
It's two now, Rick.
it is. It definitely is. So, no, I think you would be, if I had my choice on a new home, uh, if I do ever get questioned about it, I always recommend spend the extra money. It's better to do it now than to wish you had.
I'm guessing most folks go along with your recommendation because it makes sense.
Well, that doesn't happen very often. Most people don't agree with me, Patrick. So,
I don't believe that. I want to hear about some of the scary wiring you've seen in people's houses. Do you got fires waiting to happen you've uncovered? I bet you have.
oh yes, uh, it just the worst are the attics. I'm not getting any younger. I can still, crawl up in there, and you take a look at. There are reasons why the code has progressed to where it is. They ran wires right over the top of the attic access hatch,
Oh my
stuff
gosh.
like that. And then, the knob and tube, I cannot, for sure, I'm not, don't know when they stopped wiring knob and tube, but my gosh, there's a lot of it out there. Oh, and it was a simple, quick system as long as it wasn't covered with insulation. But then once they started blowing or pouring insulation in or anything, it's just a fire waiting to happen. So I try to remove the knob and tube whenever I possibly can. Sometimes you can't, and just say, well, don't add on to it, leave it alone. But it still comes back to bite you. Uh, a year ago, a friend of mine had problems, and Patrick, it was just a 12-inch piece of knob and tube wiring in the attic that burned like you would a piece of spaghetti. If you took a lighter it just burned through it in the attic. I don't know how there wasn't a fire. Fortunately, we ran separate circuit for it, and everything was fine. But it does make you say your prayers. It says, thank you for not, because it could have been much, much worse. But now the worst is, houses is one thing, but we have farmers here. My father was a farmer. They are the most hardworking people you will ever meet. They put up with so much. But Patrick, if they can jury rig something and just get by.
Well, I think you'd agree when the cows need milking, they need milking. And if you can figure out a way to make that pump work, you're going to do whatever it takes to do that, right?
Yes, you are. And then, oh, shoot, that was 3 years ago. I meant to fix that. Well, okay, but now it's a crisis.
That was 3 repairs ago.
I shouldn't run them. They're good people,
Yeah.
hardworking, but doggone it, they drive you nuts with the shortcuts, and they bring out a piece of equipment. Well, my grandpa bought this 10 years ago at an auction. Can you make some use out of this? And it's almost an insult if you can't. And like, well, I'll try. I'll give it oh, thanks, Rick. Thank you. Okay. But no, good people. I enjoy them.
What about aluminum? I had a very interesting conversation with David Shapiro, another electrician, and I thought this stuff had all gone away, but I was recently traveling in North Carolina after reading this book, Hot Connections, and I'm looking at manufactured housing from a certain area, and I notice a lot of them have burned out, and I'm wondering if that's what happened, because they put a ton of aluminum wiring in manufactured housing because it was inexpensive. And a certain period of, I think it was the 60s, when copper got stupidly expensive, there was a really serious effort to get this stuff into the marketplace, and it's dangerous. I think you'd agree.
It does seem to be for inside the house branch circuit. We still use aluminum wire underground to feed a house. Typically, we just oversize it, and then at the house or the facility, once you're done with the underground, we switch back to copper.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're absolutely right. The aluminum, I've been very fortunate. This part of the country doesn't have a lot of the aluminum branch circuits in the houses, but no, it is. You got to know what you're doing with that stuff. So.
Yeah, and the people who were like trying to make it work in the lab couldn't even do it. I later learned like it was pretty flawed from the get-go.
Man, they jumped on the bandwagon fast. They sure did a lot of places with aluminum before they figured out that, hey, this isn't a good idea. So.
And I think it's a sad reality of the construction business is often motivated by cost savings, and oftentimes it's not a good practice.
It always will be, though.
One of my dear friends, Mike Girton, I asked him today if he had any questions for a good electrician, and he said, "Have you seen modern wire methods ever start a fire? Non-metallic sheath cable, plastic boxes, currently available fixtures, switches and receptacles? And if so, is it bad installation, or is it defective products, or does the stuff just work if it's done correctly?"
For the most part, I think we're getting better. Uh, most most of the time, it's not the material that's installed; it is the installation. Uh, Asking too much from a 15 amp circuit. Uh, no, it seems like the stuff that's coming out from the industry is getting better all the time, easier to handle. Uh, I would have to lean towards, I don't want to say incompetence, but mistakes made by the installation people. So
Is it pro electricians or is it folks that shouldn't be doing electrical wiring?
you
Is
got some tough questions. Uh, Majority of your pro electricians are very good at what they do. The ones I have seen, the ones I would trust them to do something for me. Uh, Patrick, we all have bad days. This is the last
Mhm.
thing I'm going to do before I go home. I'll just kind of cobble it together real quick, and I promise I'll fix it and that next week never shows up. And we all have made that mistake, and that's the one that comes back to bite you. Now, as far as non-electricians doing their own wiring, um, majority of them will ask a question, and it's I don't think it's so much pride. They're just worried to ask a question, or else they get on a DIY website, and some DIY are good, and some are don't make the best choices to listen to. So no, the majority of it is done by people who just simply don't understand and didn't ask the right questions. But
One of the things, and folks who listen to the podcast have heard me say it about wiring, I think is especially scary, is even really dangerous wiring can work without notice. And, you know, uh, leaking pipes, gas or fluids or sewage is going to attract attention and someone's going to fix it. But, someone could have done some random wiring on their house and it could work fine for a period and they just quit thinking about it. And I'm sure you've seen what has happened.
people, it has amazed me that people will they'll hire a plumber to replace, fix a toilet or fix a faucet. They wouldn't even dream of touching that because it might leak. But then again, they'll try to rewire, some complicated part of their house or move the breaker box or something like this that, hey, that's tough for anybody to do, let alone someone who has never been trained how to do this. So
Uh, there are places in the country, in places I've lived, in fact, that you don't need to be a licensed electrician. Do you think that is something that states or municipalities should require? How do you feel about that?
I think that Nebraska approaches that pretty well. You can take out a homeowner permit uh, to do work on your primary residence. And I think that's a very good, opens the door to let a homeowner have best of both worlds. They can bring an electrical inspector in, and you know we have some, we're or short staffed, excuse me, short staffed for our electrical inspectors, but the ones we do have, um, they're pretty good. They're willing to talk to you because they don't want problems. Um, if as
No,
a
it comes
homeowner,
back to them, right? They want you to they want it to be perfect. They want you to succeed.
they do, and they specifically they don't want uh, hard feelings. They want it done right. Nobody gets hurt, and they understand people. Electricians aren't cheap. We're trying to make a living too, and I can't blame. But I think the state of Nebraska did a pretty good thing with the homeowner permits for that to make it more approachable. It really, and then you can't make a blanket statement saying, Patrick, you can't replace that broken light switch in your house. How, it's tough. It's a difficult decision to make. Uh, so I guess that.
And I've met some tradespeople who are very competent in their jobs, but I bet they would have difficulty taking a test. And it would seem like we probably need all the people doing this kind of work that we can get, as long as they're competent.
I think so. I think so. You see it everywhere. At our local community college here, I'm fortunate to be on their advisory committee. A couple times a year, we get together and they just ask the question, the instructors ask the question, what can we do better? How can we prepare mostly young people to get out in the field to, when we come out of school, they're ready to learn, ready for
working.
work.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and we have really good set of people on that committee, and they have a tough time to fill the classes, to get people to continue on with it. So, but the ones who do, I've seen excellent students come out of some of these classes. But it also reflects back on the students themselves. The instructor can only do so much, and they tell us that time and again that the student doesn't show up for the 8 a.m. class. They just it's the same in every trade, isn't it? I mean, you have the motivated people who are going to do well, and then you have not so motivated they'll get by. So
I wish that our society did more to attract smart people, motivated, driven people into trade work, because I think a lot of people make choices based on the pressure they get from their guidance counselor, their parents, and I think they end up having a less fulfilling life than they would have otherwise. And it's not about money, and it's not about status, but boy, why not do something you love instead of something you dread, right?
Very true. Very true. If you could just be able to show them, I mean, so many of the large companies that these students, their first job is, 300 a huge company, and you will do one task, and, might be bend pipe, and they lose, they're like, well, this isn't for me. I wanted to try something else. And the smaller companies that I have worked for, they're not going to pay nearly as much, but the variety is there. Patrick, if you can do a small task, get the stove working, or fix the dryer the night before all the family comes home, and you will help make somebody happy. And you can't put a price on that, that you have used your abilities, your talents, and you have made someone else's life better. That's a heck of a good feeling. So, and I'm sure, heating and air conditioning guys are the same, your plumbers. That is more than anything what keeps us crawling in those attics, or the sewer pipes, or fixing an air conditioner on a 120-degree day, is not only the paycheck. Yes, that's fine, but it's also the satisfaction. You did something other people can't, and you made someone's life a little bit better for you being you. And I wish I could impart that to more high school students, that you're not settling by going to the trades. We are, all of us, from the carpenter, and all of us we are skilled craft people, men and women. And it's something to be valued, to be proud of, and we're shorthanded. But guidance counselors, college is fine. It wouldn't have been for me. After when I was in the Navy, I was fortunate enough to finish a bachelor's, but when I was 18, no, I would have been a total failure at college. So I'm glad I waited till I was later to do it.
All right, down to the dirt dishing part of the segment here. I've heard electricians criticized by other tradespeople a few times for leaving little bits of wire and insulation everywhere, and maybe having a slight air of superiority with regard to other tradespeople. Do you think that's true?
Oh, we probably aren't the best at cleaning up after ourselves. Fortunately, the first couple of jobs I was on, the head carpenter was very, very, there was no doubt. You will clean up. You will not leave this a mess. And good people, they taught from the very beginning that this is what's expected of you. I hear that from other people, and I don't know. It's maybe because, as you can see, I talk a lot. I love to talk to the carpenters, the plumbers. Hey, where'd you come from? What's your background? Just to pass the time of day, besides pulling wire and drilling holes in a piece of wood, just to it gives you a better flavor for the day. So I try to be approachable. I try not to waste everybody's time by gabbing too much, but I can't imagine spending all day long working on a house where you think you're better than anybody. Maybe there are electricians like that, but I haven't met them. So, and I had a nephew and his wife. They had a brand new house built and wonderful job. I walked around and was like, wow, this is pretty good quality work. And so, who are the electricians? I said, oh, we don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? And they said they never met them. And I'm like, that's not possible. He said, no, the electricians came in and they did what they needed to do and they left. We never spoke to them. And that's just sad. You missed a chance to make a lifelong, to talk to somebody, to say,
Yeah.
are you happy with what I'm doing? And once again, I'm not bidding jobs. I'm not doing, not trying to do that. And I understand, guys, time is money. I got it. But I don't know, to make a connection with the customer, to say that I would like to do the very best I can for you, get you the best bang for the buck. What can I do but no, and they did a wonderful job, great job, but they just never ever spoke to the customer. They came in, did their job, and they left. And kind of an
I
opportunity.
think that would be more typical, Rick. You might talk to the GC, but your average client, like, I don't know if they want anything to do with talking to tradespeople. And, they might not, the GC might not want them to.
That's
I don't
true.
know.
You're true. So it's case by case basis too. So, but,
boy, I've heard about shortages related to specifically electrical work, meter sockets.
Oh yeah.
Is that a problem for you? Yeah.
A friend of mine called. He was asking about this and that. He's planning on building a new house, and he told me something like 33 weeks to get a meter socket.
That's not a lead time. That's like never.
So, and it's just oddball things, Patrick. It's
right?
just 20 amp double pole breaker. For a time, they didn't exist. You couldn't get any brand. It just seemed like, just weird, or a certain size, PVC, Schedule 80, heavy pipe doesn't exist. And then all the next week, they're just flooded with them. So it's so hit or miss. But no,
it must make it tough to do your work. What do you do when you can't get the conduit you need or the 2-pole 20 amp breaker?
You just have to either do without, or in my case, we have different parts of our company. If this part of the company is not using that double pole 20 amp breaker, I'll talk to the manager and say, hey, can I steal that for a couple of weeks? Exactly. I'm fortunate we're big as we are. I can do that. Man, that'd be tough to do if you're trying on a deadline, trying to get a project done. And
or fix someone's bad breaker. Like all of a sudden their electric heat doesn't work and they need a new breaker. What the heck do you do?
Yeah. But no, a lot of the things before the pandemic, I could order a pair of work boots from a local clothing store. Perfect. They'd be here in a week. Easy. Patrick, I ordered this last set in between Labor Day and Halloween, and it's still back order. It's just strange. Some things come, some don't, but no. We've been fortunate, very fortunate for us.
So what advice would you give a young person or someone thinking about a second career about, becoming an electrician or other trade work?
Oh, you need to have, keep your eyes open. And if it is like myself, I didn't start off, I did time in the Navy before I came. And you really have to just tell yourself that I'm here to learn. keep your eyes open and listen and watch, especially the other trades. I had a very good background in electricity, but I just didn't know how to interact with your plumber when they have to run their vent pipe, and they don't have a choice. That's the direction I have to run the vent pipe, or the air conditioning, heating and air conditioning the vents, stuff like that. That you need to keep an open mind, and you need to be approachable. Everybody has good days and bad days. Just because you tried to talk yesterday to the plumber and he got upset with you because you wanted something done, maybe he had a bad day. So, what advice would I give him? Just be patient. You're not going to learn it overnight. That none of the skilled trades, nothing. I don't know how long before I become a master carpenter, but they've been doing this so long. Some of the carpenters are just ridiculously good, but it took them a long time to get there. Same with but electricity too. You may know how to bend pipe, or you may know how to wire a switch. Don't be discouraged because, hey, I didn't do it right the first time. Just keep after it. The only time you're ever really whipped is when you quit. So that's about all my long-winded advice.
Oh, that's good. Do you think the Navy's a good way to learn how to be, familiar with electricity?
It was outstanding. Very demanding, and I was very, very fortunate. The people that I worked for, I learned a lot from. They brought me down to earth a lot. The first head electrician I worked for from Maine had a deep accent. He was not impressed with me, and I was 20 years. Oh, Mark, I can't. Patrick, I cannot use the same terminology, but is everybody from Nebraska as stupid as you? It brings you down to earth pretty fast when your boss is asking that. You are so dangerous. We should shove a light bulb up your nose. When we find your you idiot, lying there, we could say, hey, don't touch him. He's lit up, see? So I learned a lot from him, but
it's not always easy, rough. Right?
That was a rough little bit of time there.
So what about your own house? You got any electrical upgrades you need to do? You going to put in the spa tub or something? What's on your?
Don't talk to my wife. Wow. Patrick, she wanted me to ask the question about putting heat in the downstairs family room, and it's on slab. It's a thin piece of carpet on slab. It's going to be very cool in the winter. It's perfect in the summertime, but oh my gosh, she talks mini split. She talks forced air. Bless her heart. Just stop. Just get another blanket on, woman. But no, last summer I finally took the plunge and we removed the meter socket and put on a emergency generator transfer switch, just a manual switch with a cord.
Yeah.
That's, as you can see, you can look out the window. The winters are getting worse. The summers are getting worse. If I have any choice when I do for the company to put in a ability to run a generator on a house or facility that we need desperately, we do that. So, no, I did last summer was the transfer switch for the generator, and that really wasn't that difficult. Not too much else. I heat in the family room. Painting? Oh my gosh, I hate painting. But
do you do the other stuff that you need to do around a homestead? Like you mentioned painting, you don't like. I'm with you there, but do you fix stuff that needs fixing otherwise? Do you like it?
I do, and I take the flack for it when the clothes dryer needs a new belt, and I have to explain the cost-benefit analysis of replacing a $5 belt
versus a $500 dryer. Yeah.
Yes, every time, and it gets brutal. But no, painting. Pat, I made the mistake 25 years ago of reading the Taunton Press, the painting book, an excellent book, but it tells you step by step. Prepare the wall, wash it down with a TSP, fill in the nail holes. You have an excellent product. So as much as I hate painting, I know what needs to be done. And my sister lives here in town also. Patrick, she paints all the time. She'll paint
She likes
walls.
it. Yeah.
She does. And I'll ask her, well, so, did you wipe down the walls? Well, no. Did you fill in the nail holes? No. You just paint.
She only painted a few weeks ago. It's no problem. It's fine.
I can't. I have to tape off. I cannot. I'm not a steady enough hand. And she can. And she's like, well, just don't spill. I'm like, well, there's a shocker. Don't spill paint. So anyway, I'm sorry to get off on a tangent.
No, you're good. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything you want to ask or tell our audience before we go?
Patrick, I cannot. Thank you. It's an honor to so many things I have. I got hooked on Fine Homebuilding, like I said, about 25 years ago. So many of the tools I use, I read in your Fine Homebuilding, my tool belt, the I can't even say it correctly, Occidental leather tool belt, the Vito Pro Pack, all of that I have learned came out of Fine Homebuilding. Thank you for your magazine, and thank you what you do for the trades. I appreciate it.
It's very sweet of you, Rick, and it has been a pleasure to talk to you. And I hope that we can do this again.
I'll be glad.
Yeah, we get electrical questions, and I'll definitely run those by you. And if you think of anything that you want to tell listeners later on, please do, with comments or suggestions about how to get good electrical work done.
Thank you for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, Rick. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Rick Harrahill for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building. Thanks very much, Rick.